Hi, I'm Tony Bellizzi, and welcome to my masterclass on ministry. The whole notion of a masterclass presented by me is kind of tongue in cheek. In my mind, there is only one master, and it ain't me, it's Jesus. And ministry is not something that's just for a few. Ministry, which is doing God's work, is for everybody. um, Bringing people to faith, loving them, nurturing God's family is something we're all supposed to do. You may in your life be given the opportunity to partake in ministry in a bigger way because life is simply not true, us and God. True spirituality is not just me and my God. Our mission is together, and Jesus clearly meant to form a family, to continue his saving work and to serve God's plan in this world. So it's very natural for us to engage in ministry in a collective way, to amplify the work that God is doing, that you do first off through your life, and then you can really take off with in groups. So this presentation, which somebody told me, you should call it Confessions of a Renegade Youth Minister. It sounded attractive at the time, and then I looked up the meaning of the word renegade, and I said, well, even though I have operated on the fringes of the church and of ministry and life, I guess, all my life, I'm not really a renegade as far as like breaking out and working against the world that I'm engaged in, which is God's world and God's people, God's family, church. My purpose has always been to feed people into that and to transform that. Okay, so that doesn't quite fit me, but this we'll call it a master class for the purposes of whatever. I do not pretend to be a master, even though I've been involved in active ministry as a youth minister, religious ed director, prison minister, retreat worker, director, whatever. Did I say that already? Anyway, for nearly half a century, I am still learning and growing. So I don't present myself as a know-it-all, but I certainly have learned a few things, and I'd like to share them with the world, and hopefully you will gain something to enrich your ministry, to empower you, and to more actively and fully engage in it the way you were meant to. We're all meant to. Okay? All right, so kick back and enjoy. So, while the range of my ministry, my work, has spanned from little kids all the way through to senior citizens, it spanned from rural areas to suburban areas to urban areas to indigenous reservations to foreign countries in Africa and Asia and South America. Um, what's important to remember, even though there are subtle differences that have to be respected and can be really helpful to be paying attention to, one of the things to remember is that people are people and that everyone needs to feel love, to be connected to God, to others, that people need to be respected for who they are. People need to have a mission and a purpose for their life. And that's an important starting point to begin from. Okay, before you get into any kind of differences of the different ages and the different, geographic differences, we're all God's children. No matter what your ministry is, it's important to be transparent. Now, the world looks at that word and it's like, okay, no secrets. Okay, you're for real. What you are, what you show the world, that's what you are. And that is important. But I want to take it one step further, that in ministry, your main concern is that you literally be so transparent that who they meet is Jesus. That they meet God in you. The God in them meets the God in you, and that's where the growth, the magic, the reality really happens. Okay? So as you go about your ministry, you want to be an instrument, you want to be an animator, but more than anything, you have in your heart, in your soul, in your mind, and all that you do is that it's way more important that they meet Jesus in their encounter with you than that they have a keen sense of everything about you. It's not about you, it's about God. It's about them. Ministry happens within relationship. There is no project, no program, no agenda that's more important than the lives of the people that have been gathered. I I always think I know that, but sometimes you can get so caught up in the good you're trying to do that a person gets neglected. I want to give you one of my biggest failures at this. Um, I got this idea for youth rallies called Friday Night Live or Saturday Night Live, and you gather kids from a couple of different parishes together, and usually it's a program that the youth ministers or the kids or they together have designed. And I was hosting one of these, and I had such high hopes for it. I wanted the kids from my youth ministry that was hosting it to adopt. For each of them to adopt one kid who was coming in on a bus from another parish. I thought it'd be the coolest thing for them to feel like they had a buddy. As they got off the bus, they had somebody who was going to be their friend and going to make them feel welcome and to take good care of them and just make a new friend. Automatically, anytime you make a new friend, that exhilarates the heart, the soul, everything flies every time you make a new friend. So I had that big plan, and what was happening, it was a little too ambitious in that the kids who were in my youth ministry really weren't ready for it. The guest speaker didn't address the topic that I told him to. The kids were failing it as far as they didn't have the confidence to just do that. So there were some kids that were alone that were coming in from the other churches. The mingling wasn't happening. I was getting frustrated. And then when the kids from my youth ministry got on the food line ahead of our guests, I lost my mind. And what happened is that there had been a kid in that ministry that I was well connected to. I knew I was kind of like a lifeline for him. Whenever he'd come to confirmation classes, he was kind of quiet, kind of into himself, and I would always joke around with him and always make sure I made a point to make him feel welcome, and he moved. And I kept reaching out to where he moved to. He moved about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours away from us. But I knew that if he could go on a weekend retreat as a teenager, do some stuff, because he probably wasn't going to be fitting in that well there, I kept reaching out, and he showed up. And I remember giving him a really good welcome. He had grown up over the 6 months since I last seen him. I almost didn't recognize him. But he said who he was. I was like, oh man, I'm so glad you're here. And I know I gave him a really good welcome. But then I got so caught up in the program that I didn't get to say another word to him the whole night. And then at the end of the night, I'm looking for him, and he was nowhere to be found. He had slipped out at some point. And I felt terrible. I really was so upset with myself. I kept calling. I kept writing, never got a response. I actually kept reaching out, inviting him to other events for like 2 years. And to this day, I've not heard a word from him. And I always feel really terrible about that, but I hope and I pray that that incident really hammered home for me, you never put the program ahead of the people. Okay? It's easy to forget that. But I never, and I was committed to that already, except you can just lose it on circumstances. I mean, I'm always determined that everybody get a big greeting from me when they arrive, that everybody get wished, hey, have a great week, God bless you, when they're leaving. And it's amazing to me that a lot of kids are so used to in their life just leaving someplace without saying goodbye to anybody that I practically have to position myself in the right place in order to do that. But it's relationship, relationship with Christ, relationship with people, and just getting to know the real things about them, and that unfolds over time. You know, sometimes it takes years of being the friendly greeter, of showing an interest before they're willing to say anything. And it's always different. The important thing is ministry is about relationship and feeding that. When someone would want to become a volunteer in any of my ministries, I always say I got two qualifications. You got to love Jesus and you got to love teenagers. Okay? If neither one of those is that important to you, well, God bless you. I'll see you maybe later. But you got to be willing to, and you're not their friend. You know, you're not looking to fulfill any. It annoys the heck out of me when I see an adult that really needs the ministry for themselves. Okay, so when I say relationship, it's not like you're looking to fulfill your needs. Okay, you're open to gaining insight and loving connection with the people you minister with, but you're not coming from a position of I need relationships. Okay, I need to be close to them for me. Okay, so you treasure and you cultivate the closeness with people, but it's transparent in that it is not for you. Okay, it's for God that you're doing it, and it's for the good of that person, and no agenda comes ahead of another human being. I'm only talking to you in this video because at the end of my high school years, I made a retreat weekend. I had been a lost kid. I was not flowing in any kind of way all through high school. And then that retreat weekend was called a Christian Awakening. Ironically enough, it was an awakening. But the reason it worked and the reason it was memorable and it's the reason it has launched me into a whole life of ministry was because the growth within myself and the Spirit of God coming alive in me and my relationship with Jesus becoming real and God becoming more real than ever, it was within the context of a community of guys gathered. It was an all-guys retreat for 4 days in which we became a band of brothers, in which we could be real with each other. We laughed. We shared life. We ate. Community is where this all happens. So no matter what your ministry is, if it's in a jail, if it's a religion class, your primary goal is to transform a group into a family. It's more important that we not be known as youth groups, okay? We're youth communities. It's got to feel like family. If the kids can articulate that themselves, and I always know if I'm doing any good, if when you ask kids to recruit other kids, you know, they're able to say like, you know what, I can't explain it except that it's like a family. Within family. And why is that? That my opinion? That's not my, because I think it's important. Look at what Jesus did. He clearly gathered apostles around himself that he nurtured, cultivated, and commissioned to continue his work. Okay? Some people say, like, did Jesus mean to form a brand new religion? We know he definitely meant to form a community, a family with which he could continue his saving work when he would have gone back home to the larger reality. So, nothing is more important than doing everything to do that. And how do you cultivate community? You eat together, you laugh together, you do service together. You have to spend time together. That's where it all happens. That's why I'll talk a little bit more about retreat weekends later, but you get more spiritual growth done in a retreat weekend than you do in 47 Wednesday nights. Okay? It's just the way it works because when we spend extended time together, okay, things really happen. You got to be an explorer. You got to be an explorer of where you've been planted. One of my most probably amazing ministries was in the community that I live in, Queens Village. And the reason why it was we had like 450 kids in our youth ministry. We had an underground parish that operated out of the religious ed program. Um, it was so much happened, and it happened because I lived there and I walked the streets, and people banged on my door in the middle of the night and called me at any time and saw me at church and saw me everywhere. And I have not had that luxury since those days, because what God's been calling me to is to all these retreat days and nights and several ministries at once. So, but most of you watching this video will probably only be called to minister in one place, and that's a blessing. But you've got to get out. You've got to get out. And Pope Francis says this all the time: get out of the office and get your hands dirty. Go out there among the people. He uses the expression "smell like the sheep." Okay, because if you're a shepherd and you're out there among your sheep, well, you're bound to smell like them, and that's how they recognize their shepherd, from the smell of them. Okay, and no one's saying you should have extreme body odor here, but that's the way you get to know. So for a youth minister, see if you can get involved in your high school, your public high school, in your neighborhood. Go to games. Go to shows that the kids are in. Be there at Sunday Mass to just see the families you got and notice the ones you don't have that go to church or don't, not really part of church life at all. But just be visible and explore. Get to know what the feel of your community is and the feel of your people is. And again, and a part of me wishes I could be only in one place again to be able. But I do try to entrench myself wherever I am. It just ends up not being with the intensity as it could be if it was my only ministry. Explore the culture of the people that you're ministering with. For young youth ministers, for example, it can be quite easy for them because they listen maybe to the same music as their kids do. They may watch the same TV shows on Netflix or movies or play the same video games. I've known several youth ministers, one in particularly Rolando, who now does his ministry from heaven. But that man knew every video game and every movie and every song and every band, and it was crazy. And he could connect with so many kids that way. Now, I'm old, so I am still interested in their culture. So I ask them, okay, so what are you into? And it's fascinating. It really gives me an insight into what's going on with them. For example, a lot of kids are into anime, Japanese animation. And I am an expert on the Japanese phenomena of hikikomori, the socially isolated youth in Japan. And so I incorporate a certain amount of anime into the presentation I developed. And I would never have thought to even share that presentation with the kids, but once I found out they're into Japanese culture, that some of them even knew about it already. And the fact that I was bringing a discussion of loneliness and anxiety and social isolation, things that are happening with American kids now, and in such a thorough way connected to Japan, which they're fascinated with, it just kicked everything in big. And that was with 3 different youth groups in 3 different towns, slightly different populations, but getting to know what they were into led me to that, which made me able to share something that made it all come together. Youth community, youth group became a place where their interests feed into the kinds of things that they could explore with me and with each other. And sometimes it works out so wonderful. Like, again, with the animation, I had never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. Wasn't watching Nickelodeon in those days when it came out, and then it had been released on Netflix, and the kids were like, "Tony, you got to see this," and I did, and I loved it, and I incorporated in a couple of youth ministry sessions on it, on different scenes from it. I enjoyed it that much. Now, sometimes it can get out of hand. For example, there's another anime series called One Piece. One Piece is got like almost 1,000 episodes. And in all my youth ministries, right now, the kids who are into this stuff are like, Tony, you got to see it. And I'm like, I have a life. I don't have time for 1,000 episodes. And they gave me good advice. They said, like, Tony, just watch one at a time. And it works. Okay? I don't know if I'm ever going to get through all 1,000, but at least I'm motivated to watch as many as I can. And because my kids are into it, then I can go back to them. And what I'm finding is even though they've watched almost 1,000 episodes, they can remember things that happened in the first couple. So it's a part of their life in their world. I even have one young man say to me, "Oh, that's my religion." That particular series, One Piece. So I said, "Why do you say it's your religion?" Because I know you're committed to being Catholic. And Christian's like, "No, because it's affected me in so many different ways." So explore the art, the music. Kanye West had a religious experience, opened up to Christ. He had been heavily addicted to pornography all his life, and it was only Jesus that helped him overcome that. And so he dedicated a whole album to Jesus. Now I listen to it because, well, my kids are into Kanye. I should really check it out. Frankly, I think Jesus deserved better, but at least it was something I was able to bring in, okay, and saying, okay, this is going on right now, okay, and that might be old news in a year maybe, okay, the way things change, but just be exploring the art that they're into. Hamilton came out on Disney, all right. There were some kids that loved it. A lot of them wanted to check it out when it got released because there was a lot of buzz about it. But when I brought Hamilton to the youth group to watch, there were some kids that sang every line along with the movie. It was what was happening. It was also happening at the time of Black Lives Matter and the riots in the streets, and some of the things in that show tied into it and fed. And if I had my head in the sand and didn't know about any of these things happening, I would have missed out on some incredible opportunities. And so will always be with you. And things change. Hey, I've got a collection of 70 songs ranging from Jethro Tull to the Ramones that I brought in to different youth events in those days. Can I use any of them now? No. Maybe that'll all come back. I don't know. But you have to be willing to roll with things. There's a lot of contemporary Christian music that's amazing. I recommend Oceans right here. I have a kid in my youth group that can play Oceans on the violin, and you cry. Everybody cries. All right, there's really good stuff out there. Art touches the heart. Okay, makes you feel something. I often talk about the story of the Last Supper and Da Vinci's painting of that. Anything you can get your hands on, that's artistic. And of course, another art form is performance. My kids tend to be inhibited these days. I'm dying to do more skits. I'm dying to put together a whole show because I'm inclined that way. But that's not where they're at, so you can't push it. You open the door and you gradually nudge people forward. I created a create retreat to stimulate and cultivate their creativity. Hopefully it'll lead to some more skits. It led to an awful lot of videos coming out of that special weekend away to create and collaborate with other people. So you do what you got to do, but because art is something that touches the heart, always be looking for works of art to bring into the process. Okay? Keep it real. Don't ever be fake. Don't ever try and put something out there that you don't really have in here. If you're enjoying something, okay, the group you're presenting it to will. If you feel passionately about something, that will convey. The worst is if you just really put yourself in a position because you're saying something because you think you're supposed to, or you're doing something because someone else said it was a really great idea. You have to just be a real person. And your ministry has to be a place where people know that they can be real. So whenever you're in a position of trying to facilitate, for example, discussion, you throw the question out, you answer it first. And you answer it as real as you can, because if you give a superficial answer and you don't deal with it right, you're going to set the tone of like, we're just gonna play a little game here, okay? We'll answer questions rather than actually be real with each other. So you have to be willing to keep it real. And also another way of keeping it real is be willing to discuss topics with people that are part of real life. You know, there's a lot of people that don't like my retreats. They're just way too real for them. Because I give the kids a chance to bring to the retreat, okay, how does God help you if you're struggling with this? Okay, what do you do if that happens? And some people just want it to be some kind of religious fluff that kind of makes everybody feel nice and warm and fuzzy and leave it there. And there's a place for that in the world. Okay, but if I'm only got one shot at being with a group, because they get so many opportunities to be in a religious or a godly situation and the person's not keeping it real. So many times a young person in particular will go to church and they'll hear a sermon that's not got the littlest thing to do with their lives. And there's so many times where it just reinforces that this is not for me. More than anything, you want the people you minister with to know that God is for them. And so that means taking chances. That means taking chances, being willing to be on the fringe, being willing to, just go places that some other people won't, for the good of people. Not just to be a rebel, not just to be out there, but just because when someone sees something that they're going through is brought into something of God. Okay, whether it's a religion class, whether it's a youth ministry gathering, whether it's prison ministry, whether it's an adult retreat, and the more real you keep it and be willing to share your life stories, to give your witness, okay, and the more that they will feel empowered to be real with you and with each other, and most of all with God. We don't need to play games. And so many people in church situations do that. And again, maybe there's a place for that, but, if you, yeah, that's it. As a minister, your goal is, your purpose is to be an animator. Gone are forever the days where a person could be in a position of sharing faith and being boring about it. Or thinking because you're presenting information that maybe your audience doesn't already have and, can get from you. Your goal is to make faith alive, to make Jesus alive, to make the Holy Spirit manifested. And so every event that you put together, everything that you're part of, you have in your awareness to be an animator, to make something happen. Little things are huge. Little gestures, little efforts, little gifts, little noticing things, little comments, they make a big difference. So pay attention to the little things. Be willing to do the little things. Sometimes in ministry you think like, I'm supposed to bring a lot of people to God, so I better have big grand gestures and big grand projects and whatever. And so many times the things that people really remember, that really make an impact, are the little things. I'll give you a quick example. This is being made in 2020, and this was the year of the great pandemic and quarantine. And my ministries always celebrate young people's birthdays. Always to be able to say, glad you was born, we appreciate you, glad you're here. And so we weren't able to do that because we weren't be able to meet. But what I did was I put little birthday packages together, okay? Little cupcakes, some candy, bracelets, stickers, and a homemade card, and brought them to the kids in my ministry's houses. I can't even tell you what that meant to people. People, even parents. Parents, I'll always remember the one father was almost in tears. He said something in Spanish, and I asked his son, I said, what did your father say? He said, I can't believe the church came to us. Man, if I do nothing else with my life, okay? But little things make a difference. Notice if someone is, going through something, remembering that. I struggle because I'm lousy with names. And I've got, as this video is being done, I've got 4 youth ministries going, okay? So sometimes I blow it. I mean, I've got 2 girls in one of my youth groups that are friends. They look like they could be twins. And I always get their names wrong. And I wish I didn't. You strive, but you strive. You strive to do the little things. Notice things, okay? Don't ever forget that. There is a great power in little things. Keep records. There are people that become obsessed with record keeping in ministry. I mean, some people, it's out of control. But keep a record of who's coming. Okay? This way you can spot, who have we seen in a couple of weeks? Maybe that'll be easy for you if you've only got one ministry, you've got this one class of 10 kids. You don't need to make a big deal out of this, but in one of my ministries, I've got 150 kids if they all came at once. Okay, and any given night of attendance, 40 to 60, okay, whatever. It's easy to, because you got a full house, you think like, oh, great, and somebody not showing up for a couple of weeks, it could slip through the cracks. So record keeping exists as a way for you to serve, okay, for letting people feel loved, and you're just noticing. It means a lot to people when you reach out and say, hey, how you been? We haven't seen you in a while. Sometimes that's how you find out that they're going through a family problem. Someone in the family, is sick, or circumstances change, or they just can't get a ride. But that's what record keeping exists for. It just helps you to have, make sure that people don't get lost. That's what's wrong, at least in the Catholic tradition. Churches are so big, there's so many people, and people feel like no one even notices. And that brings me to make sure that you know that ministry is not yapping at the mouth the whole time. I've met youth ministers, okay, that thought that, and they came highly recommended to me to work under me in ministry, and all they thought youth ministry was, I'm talking all the time, and then I'm praying all the time. And I ended up firing them, or pushing them out the door, whatever. I was just like, really? Really, you're going to let a kid come down here and go home and feel like nobody even asked me what I think, what I'm going through? I didn't get a word in? Never. Never, ever, ever should that happen. Okay? So that's not a little thing. That's actually a little thing. That's a very huge thing. Look around. Did everybody get a chance to say something? Okay? Even if they didn't want to, but it was passed to them, and they had the opportunity.